the biggest part of comedy is social commentary.
Yes,
and if you're not paying attention to society, you ain't got nothing to add.
Right.
So that's what happened, is that he comes back and he's got all these viewpoints, and he's also coming from the frame of mind of a wealthy person who doesn't have to deal with the day-to-day.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And that's part of his shtick, is talking about being wealthy now. Yeah.
And a comic is not going to be funny unless they are not only right on top of things, but actually a step ahead.
Yep.
You know, and that's the ones that we love, the ones that are just one half a step ahead of the rest of us.
Hi, Lindas.
Hi.
Hi. Welcome to A Couple of Lindas, where we're just a bunch of Lindas out here trying to figure out life, and conversation and wine is always the best way to do that. Conversations with our best of friends. Speaking of best of friends, on this week's episode, I have got Kathleen, who is an artist, a theater director, an actor, what else does she do?
TV watcher.
She is a connoisseur of culture.
Gal about town.
And back with us again is Jennifer,
Hi again.
Is always a purveyor of what's going on screens. You know, that's something that we always end up kind of talking to each other about, where, like, when I walk in to your establishment, and the first thing is usually like, oh my God, have you seen ... Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is what are you watching? I'm going to keep it light. But before we do all that, what is putting a smile on your face this week?
Me?
Yeah,
Kathy.
Kathy.
I know you always ask this question, so I really thought about it. And I think the fact that right now I'm in between projects. So, like, I got dressed to come here. And
we appreciate it too.
Yeah.
Yes,
and
thank you.
And I get to watch all this TV we're talking about, and I probably should be doing more than I am, but I'm really enjoying the downtime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
So that's making me pretty happy.
What about you, Jennifer?
I'm at the opposite end of the spectrum, sister. I'm at the end of the semester and losing my ever-loving mind. But that being said, you know, my life is great. Mm-hmm. I'm just irritated as crap right now.
Okay. All right.
Just keep it in perspective. There's nothing wrong. I'm just irritated.
It's just that time.
It's not you. It's just the world.
That's right.
What's making me happy is this weekend, and actually it will have already happened by the time this episode, comes out, the new season of Crown.
Oh, yes, I know. I'm so excited.
Yes.
Right. Oh, that's exciting. Yeah. I know what I'm doing this weekend.
Exactly.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So batten down the hatches of the home with all my favorite snacks, and we are watching all things Crown.
Yes, nice. It is. It's going to be flipping cold, and we are going to make some chili, and there's going to be a quilt involved. Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Oh, yes.
But speaking of this show, I know that's something. It was a new show last season. And wasn't sure what to think of it, because there was a bunch of there was the big hit with British shows with Downton Abbey on PBS, and with that show coming to an end, I think PBS came out with another show called Victoria, and right around which is good. And total failure on my part as a former PBSer. I did not watch that show.
I haven't either. Okay. I confess.
But The Crown came out, and I was in love at first sight.
Absolutely.
The costumes, the storyline, the way they're telling the story, and the fact that at the beginning of it, they were saying how we're obviously going to have multiple seasons of this because we're taking it decade by decade by decade. What was some of your thoughts of, that first season?
I felt like it seemed really true. It seemed like they were sticking to, the timeline. They weren't manipulating history very much. I mean, obviously it's fiction because we don't know what happened in their private lives, but everything just feels very plausible. And I think the what's the girl's name who's doing Elizabeth? I can't think what her name is, but I think that she makes that person so accessible. And I've always liked Queen Elizabeth. I think she's an interesting character, and there's so little that you know about her. I think Judy Tenuta used to do a thing about what's in the Queen's purse. Do you remember that bit?
Yes, I do.
And it's kind of fascinating. Like, what do they talk about?
Yeah.
What do the simple folk do? But I loved the first season.
Yeah.
And it was so pretty.
It was very pretty.
Yes, I love that genre. And to me, her relationship with Philip was so interesting because it's something you always wonder about. You know, what's behind all of that. So I found that extreme. I just love anything royal.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like so excited. I don't want to get off topic here about the engagement of Harry. I like her. She has my approval.
Yeah.
I just think she is darling and perfect, and I get excited about that sort of thing. So.
Yeah, me too. I remember, being a kid when Charles and Diana got married, and getting up at 4:00 in the morning.
Oh yeah.
To watch it.
Oh yeah. It's just...
It was fun.
Yes. I just love it. So I'm really excited.
So the costuming in season 1 was fabulous. Do either of you read the blog that Tilo does? You know what I'm talking about? It's something that...
Yeah.
Lisa hooked me up with it. I don't know exactly... I don't know. I'm not paying attention to their names, but they do a rundown of different shows and they evaluate, the costuming and whatnot.
Oh, fun!
And they talked about the pearls of power, and it's so funny. And they're absolutely right. You watch, and in various scenes, the more powerful Elizabeth or her mother wanted to be, or the director wanted to portray them, the more strands of pearls they got. So there's the single strand, the double strand, and the triple strand.
Wow. I'm going to need to watch for that.
Yeah, well, and also look at the colors, because whoever's doing the costuming is paying a lot of attention to this color for private time, this color for very specific, power-oriented meetings and things. Yeah.
I may need to watch it all over again as leading up to the new season.
See if I can find a link and send you to these guys, because they are
And what's their name?
Tilo? Tilo, it's like T.Lo.
It's Tom and Lorenzo.
Tom and Lorenzo.
I have heard of them. I haven't listened to them, though. How fun.
Well, and they did the same thing with Feud. Every episode they were dissecting the costuming. It was wonderful.
I love it.
It was wonderful.
I love it.
And speaking of Feud, like there was a little bit of obsession with us in watching that series.
Oh my God, I just loved every moment of it.
And again, it seemed like they stuck to a reasonable version of reality.
They did.
They took more liberties.
Yes,
but,
of course. But I really... Susan, I'm not so sure about the casting. How did you...
My problem with Susan Sarandon as Betty Davis is that she was too pretty.
I think so, too.
She was just too pretty. And even though she's the right age, she doesn't look the right age.
Yeah, that was... I mean, I loved and ate up every minute of it.
Yeah,
but that bothered
she was fabulous.
Me.
Loved her.
Yes, but that did bother me. But I love all things Betty and Joan.
Yeah.
Who doesn't?
Stupid people.
Fools.
I don't know. I was just so sad by seeing all these things that she had to do physically to keep her beauty that was so detrimental, like with everything that was going on with her teeth and the surgeries and all that kind of stuff.
Pitiful. It was pitiful.
And then looking at all the things that, these actresses had to go through. I mean, look at Judy Garland. It killed her.
But yes, to that extent, but that still happens, with people in the business. They have to maintain in order to be able to work, especially in the movies.
Yeah.
They have to have those facelifts. They have to keep those teeth. They have to.
Well, yes and no. I mean, you look at somebody like Judi Dench. And Judi Dench and Helen Mirren and Maggie Smith.
Yes,
I think it's more an American problem.
Yes,
than
absolutely. No
just
question about it.
Theater. problem.
No question about it.
Because they're in a movie every year.
Yeah.
You know, they're cranking out more than...
Exactly. But they're also who they are. They're not somebody who's struggling and trying to keep working. You know, it's hard to keep working.
Yeah. But I look at them, and then I look at, and you know, no offense to her, but I look at somebody like, say, Jane Fonda, who has had a lot of work done,
right?
Which is fine, you know, your choice. It's not trying to be judgmental about that, but she did, they didn't. Would it have made a difference? Would she be working now?
Oh, I don't think hers was because of the work. I think hers was because of vanity.
Well, but isn't that sort of...
Not always.
Yeah.
I think it's two different things. I really, really do. I think there's a lot of pressure on women. Well, first of all,
in general.
In general. You're right. In general, but especially in that business.
Yeah.
Because you are your product. You are that.
Yeah, selling yourself.
You're selling yourself.
And then you're just desperately trying to hold on to youth. And like, for example, shows like AbFab. Right?
Yes, yes.
Why that was so funny is that, you know, these women who at that time were, you know, maybe in their 40s, 50s,
probably, yeah.
You know, at the beginning of the series in the 90s, and how, you know, they're talking about these women who are just trying all of these different ways to hold on to this grasp of youth culture. And it's still, and why that show still remains a really good show and concept is because those things are still prevalent.
They sure are.
And yeah, I mean, and also, what do you think about there's been all these reboots in movies and then taking television shows and then making them into movies? You know, I was a little skeptical. I was excited about the idea of the AbFab movie, but then I was like, is it going to be the same? 'Cause that's weird. You know, you're so used to seeing it in TV form. You know, how did that translate for you? And like, what do you think about that whole...
I thought they stayed true to, you know, the AbFab.
Yeah,
I don't even know what to call it, but the feel of it.
Yeah.
Because it was silly and funny. And,
yes, I agree. I
think they did a really nice job of just making a nice long version of, you know, what you wanted to see.
Yeah. So what are some of your favorite shows that you're watching right now?
The one that I texted you about. Have you seen an episode of it?
Not yet.
I was hoping that you could see at least one before we get here.
Well, I wasn't.
It's on Amazon Prime, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
I've heard since then many people saying how wonderful it is.
What's it about?
It's set in 1958, and it's about a wealthy Jewish housewife living on the Upper East Side. You know, perfect apartment, 2 kids. You know, everything is great. Then her husband leaves her. And he has been trying to become a comic. You know, so he's like working the, you know, Mad Men circuit during the day, you know, being what he is. But then at night, they'll go down to the village and he gets on stage at a coffee house and he's trying to be a comic and he's really bad. But so she loses her shit, you know, and goes down there the night that he leaves her drunk and just gets on stage and takes off.
Oh, wow.
And she, you know, meets up with Lenny Bruce and he becomes a friend.
Oh,
and
wow.
And so it's about her navigating this enormous change in her life and the idea of a woman in 1958 trying to get into comedy.
How wonderful. I can't wait.
You are going to love it.
Am I?
Yes. You're going to love it hard.
Speaking of women comics, I urge everyone to watch Netflix, Lynn Coplett's The Hormonal Beast. Lynn was kind of hung around Cookville a bit in the 90s, and I got to know her a little bit, and she had done some work at Backdoor Playhouse, and she saw some shows of mine. But anyway, she then went to New York to, you know, really try to make it, and has worked her butt off for 20-something years. And this is her moment.
Yeah.
She has an hour-long special on Netflix. It is everybody I've showed it to. I can't tell you how many times I've watched it. Everybody I show it to just screams.
Yeah, it was one of the funniest things I've seen in a while.
It is so funny. So please, please, please. Number one, because it's hilarious. Number two, because when you know someone, you want to support them, you know, and she's worked so hard. So
I would see it just because of the title.
oh yeah, it's amazing. So yeah, I cannot recommend that enough. So speaking of women's comics,
it's been really cool to see this. You know, I feel like we're in this other golden era of television with these streaming networks.
Yes,
Netflix,
absolutely.
Amazon, Hulu, all of these original series that are coming out of these making storytelling, taking it to a different level. You know, something that you wouldn't be able to get away with on the networks.
It's something that's not a homogenous sort of, you know, over focus grouped project.
Exactly, and the quality of it.
Yes.
It's not just it's the quality of it, and I find it extremely exciting that this is happening, because I think television for a long time, and I'm not gonna say they got a bad rap, because they kind of deserved it in a lot of ways for a lot of years, but right now is the time of television, I think, and it's the time of the actor. You look at some of these actors who are getting to work.
There's so many options now.
So many options now, and then you see, and I don't know about if you, maybe it's just me, but I love to see somebody in a series, and then you go, oh, wait a minute, there he is again. Oh, I'm so glad he's working. He's so good, you know. But it's excellent, and you know, it's out there, and I feel like there's like something for everybody.
Yeah, we're going through a renaissance, and even like Facebook is starting to have their own original shows as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a thing now.
Okay.
Like, they have it. Is it on Facebook?
It's on Facebook. If you're on your app or whatever, I haven't really done it on or looked at any of it on the computer, but you know that little icon at the bottom that has a play symbol in it, in a box and a screen. You hit that, and it takes you to, you know, if you can follow a couple of shows. You have your own watch list, but then you have Discover. And of course, they're using your, you know, algorithm and all your data to kind of, you know, shove shows at you that probably will appeal to you. But there's whole series. Some of it
Really?
Is reality.
So it's original stuff from Facebook?
Original, yeah. Some of it's reality,
Wow.
some of it's dramatic, and they're more in the style of web series that you would see like on YouTube. You know, they're not quite of the high quality production
quality,
of,
you know, Netflix, but you know, they're platforms to tell other really interesting stories.
I love that. It's you know, it's sort of like the way our election system doesn't work very well, because the primaries take out the unique individuals, and we end up with a kind of a middle ground, nobody really likes them candidate a lot of times. And I feel like that's what happens in network television.
Yes.
That, you know, they send you something that's just right down the middle of the road that is predictable. And so, you know, all of the stuff that we're seeing on other platforms, it's just much more exciting. Like as the Master of None.
Yeah.
the Aziz
Oh, my
Ansari
goodness.
series. He's brilliant. He's
such a
brilliant.
great show.
Have you seen the episode that I think it starts season 2? That is just like it's a love letter to every Italian film from the 60s. It's so good.
Yes.
It's
so creative.
brilliant. It's
Yeah.
brilliant. I love it.
That was the most perfect season of a television show I think I've seen.
Me too. I
like,
couldn't get
ever.
enough and was so sad when it was over.
Yeah. I mean, the way, so they, you know, they're telling this story of, you know, you don't see a lot of South Asian folks on television and movies. And so they started out that first season kind of doing more of that, like commenting on that, where you don't see diversity.
Right.
But then the second season, now that they've kind of gone through, and he was, you know, Aziz, his whole shtick is like dating and the age of technology. But this whole season of where they just kind of got obsessed with Italian cinema over the course of the year, and just used that as the backdrop for the entire season, which
Loved
just
it.
Yeah, it was like
brilliant.
a love letter to Italy, and I just couldn't get enough.
And that soundtrack was everything.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
So that's, again, it's Aziz Ansari.
Aziz Ansari.
Aziz Ansari, sorry. Aziz, this is what I do. Aziz Ansari, it's called Master of None. Don't miss it.
Yeah, absolutely fabulous. And speaking of not seeing a lot of of those faces, have you seen a documentary called is it The Problem or The Trouble with Apu?
Yes.
The trouble with Apu, or problem with I've not seen it yet. I've listened to a bunch of interviews with him.
I have it recorded. I've seen an interview. It's waiting. I'm waiting for the right time to be able to sit down and watch it. And from what I understand, he's approaching this not in a I hate The Simpsons kind of way, or I hate Hank Azaria. He's just saying, dude, let's 20 years on, let's take a look at this, and is this still a viable character? Is this really a thing that we should do? So I can't wait to see it.
It's really, really good.
Good.
You
It's
have watched
excellent.
it?
Yes, it's excellent. I have the time. It is excellent.
Must be nice.
Yeah, it is. Thank you.
But yeah, I love that there are these series that. So is that one on Hulu or is it on Fuse? I can't remember.
I don't know.
You don't
I
know?
don't remember.
But speaking of something about that was about the same, something that I watched was about the demise of the Dana Carvey show.
Yes, I just watched that. That was fascinating.
That was fascinating.
And it's not on my radar at all.
Yes.
Yeah,
What's it called though? It has a
Too Big to Fail, something like that.
something like
Too
that.
Funny to Fail.
Too funny to fail.
Okay. Put it on my
Too
list.
funny to fail.
I mean, I remember when that show came out,
I know.
and because I was a big SNL fan.
Yeah.
But I didn't really watch it. There was, I think I was just not quite in that age group yet to really pay attention.
Well, it was only on for 6 weeks, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So you couldn't miss it really
It was
easily.
like that. But yeah, well, and I thought it was more like him having a talk show, but it was really, the format of Chappelle show. Dave
Yes,
Chappelle.
yes.
That was the first. Well, I mean, Carol Burnett. That was okay. So
Yeah, duh.
yes, pay homage. But I thought it was going to be more like a Johnny Carson kind of late night show, so I
Yes.
didn't really pay attention to it. But I had no idea how all of these comedy greats who back then were nobodies,
Yes.
they were a part of it. Steve Carell, Stephen Colbert, he who shall no longer be named, Louis C.K.
Oh yeah, Louis C.K. That's right.
Which just makes me so sad.
Yeah.
Creepy.
But all of these folks, and who's the guy from SNL that created the ambiguously gay duo? He was always a writer.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about. Can't think of his
Yes.
name, but
Ambiguously gay duo.
the ambiguously. They say they
my
go
bad.
into that and how that was the spin that started on the Danny Carver show.
Right.
But when that all failed,
SNL picked it
he was
up.
like, "Can I come back to SNL?" And a lot of those folks were able to either go to the Daily Show, the original one with Craig Kilborn, and then SNL, and just everybody kind of just dispersed. But it was this really punk situation where the way, I don't know, it's just fascinating to see how that concept came together, where Dana Carvey was the biggest SNL star.
Right.
And he was trying to revamp television and sketch and all that, but it was just too much. And there was one of the most hilarious scenes I've ever seen in a documentary in my entire life. And they were talking about how it was a situation, I won't spoil it, but it was a situation of just bad timing and just showing how that show was not scheduled well by the network.
Yes.
It just was not.
But I think also that I think the network thought it was going to be one thing, and then when the writers all got in the room, they made it another thing.
Yeah.
And hence the first episode. And it just blew up. And I'm not easily shocked. I just went, yikes, what were they thinking? But then in the end you go, wow, look what that happened to make everything else happen.
Yeah.
And thank goodness it did.
Yeah.
So, and I don't want to spoil it, but yeah, that's definitely worth watching, I think.
And what about Dave Chappelle? I mean, so he was gone forever, finding himself or whatever it was that he decided to do, and then made a big splash. I'm back, and then
Yeah. His stand-up comedy series that he came back with, it was 2-parter or something. It was on Netflix. I never even bothered to watch it because I was listening to too many interviews and think pieces about how he's basically doing the same jokes that it's like he got stuck because he did go into, hermitude or whatever. He lost touch with what was going on, and so he's coming back and he's like, "What's with all this, transgender stuff?" And it's like, really?
You're not up to date.
Yeah,
you're not up to date, my friend.
You're.
So did he just see the writing on the wall and took an exit?
No.
As I understand, I mean, he was at the top of his game and was, everything was going great when he just kind of lost it. I think
No, but I mean recently.
Oh, yeah.
Is that from the sexual harassment stuff?
No. He came back and tried to do, like, hey, I'm back, y'all, and here's my big show, and it just fell flat. Nobody dug it
because we were all beyond what he was talking about. We were all beyond, and it showed he also class. Right? Mm-hmm. When he was starting out, he was a man of the people, right? Mm-hmm. And so he gets a show, Chappelle's Show, and he makes it big, and it's a great show, and it's doing all of this cultural and society commentary, but then realizing that the people that he's trying to reach, they're laughing more than they are taking in the message.
Right.
And so he felt like, oh God, I gotta quit this. And so he took a hiatus for like a better part of a decade, but apparently was not paying attention to anything. He was just kind of sitting in his own world. Yeah, but didn't he
like go to Africa or something?
I mean, yeah, like maybe he like went to Mecca and all this stuff. But again, when he came back, having not paid attention, because the biggest part of comedy is social commentary. Yes, and if you're not paying attention to society, you ain't got nothing to add.
Right.
So that's what happened, is that he comes back and he's got all these viewpoints, and he's also coming from the frame of mind of a wealthy person who doesn't have to deal with the day-to-day.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And that's part of his shtick, is talking about being wealthy now. Yeah.
And a comic is not going to be funny unless they are not only right on top of things, but actually a step ahead.
Yep.
And that's the ones that we love, the ones that are just half a step ahead of the rest of us.
Speaking of which, have you all tuned into Mark Maron's stand-up Too Real?
No, I tried to listen to his podcast a while ago. He's too ranty.
Here it is. Ranty. I felt the same way because I was recommended by my son and his friend Sean, because I was saying, what podcast should we watch? They said, Mark Maron. Well, and I did the same thing. I listened to it. I went, nah, I can't do this. Well, when my son came home at Thanksgiving, I told him this. He said, what about Mark Maron? I'm there. Nah, I couldn't do it. He said, all right. He made me sit down and he put on and it's on Netflix. He put on his stand-up. It is hilarious. And the thing is once you see it, you go, oh, now I get it.
Okay.
So does the podcast feel less ranty if you have this?
Your ear is more tuned to his message and the way he's saying it. It made all the difference in the world to me, and I can now listen to it. It's not, I'm still not crazy about his podcast, but because I watched his stand-up, which was current, hilarious, loved it, that Me Too, and just laughed, I went, okay, now I get it.
Yeah.
Okay,
I get it.
How do you spell Maron? I'm putting this on my list.
Maron, and this is called Too Real.
Too Real. Okay, I will give that a shot.
Yes, and I think it's correct me if I'm wrong after you hear it, but I think that will change. My understanding is, and I haven't listened to it, but apparently he does a interview with Barack Obama that is amazing.
That's why I was tuning in. I was like, that's the episode that I put on, but apparently he does a whole like rant at the beginning of it where he's just talking at the listener, and then like I didn't even make it to the interview because I was like, what is happening? Because I didn't know how far ahead to fast forward to get to
Barack Obama.
The meat of it. But it was very reminiscent of like George Carlin at the end.
Okay.
You know, like George Carlin was one of my favorite comedians, you know, growing up.
Yeah.
But then at the end, he just became like just angry and incensed. And his stand ups weren't so much like, you know, social commentary anymore as it was just like him going the fuck off.
I hate everything, and this is why.
And so it was just reminded.
Not that you're wrong, but still, dial back.
Right.
Which I kind of just did not like. The same thing with Margaret Cho. Like I loved Margaret Cho when she first came out, but then it just became very like preachy in a way.
Yeah, I see that. I see that.
So I mean, if you've got the platform and that's the direction you're heading, that's great. But I'm not here for it.
You know who I just also watched? I can't think of her name. You met her in Vegas.
Bette Midler?
No. She was part of the black. She's black, a lesbian.
Oh, Wanda Sykes.
Wanda Sykes.
I love Wanda.
She has a new stand up that is really. She talks. It's really funny. She's married to a French woman, and she's got a set of twins that are so white. And she talks about being a black woman amongst all these white people.
Story of my life.
It's real. Then you will. It's very funny.
She is hilarious.
Her voice. She's one of those people that like that really distinct. You hear three words like, that's Wanda Sykes.
That is Wanda Sykes.
Did you really meet Bette Midler?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
It was the 2008 campaign for Obama, and she did a thing for there was an LGBTQ contingent. She came to one of the big gay clubs, Crave, back then. It's been closed now. But she did a thing at the big, in the big part of the club. But there was a private, like, VIP meet and greet beforehand at the other side, and I went to that. And so there's a picture of us. We were all hanging out. We knew that she was going to come in, but we thought it was going to be more of her just kind of like, oh, hi, you know, wave.
Hi, bye. Yeah.
You know, hi and bye before she went on stage, on the big stage. But we were all standing around talking, drinking, or whatever. And all of a sudden, like, someone brings her over to us, and we're like, oh, hi.
Hi, Bette.
hey, girl. And we're like, oh, let's take a photo or whatever. And so there's two photos. The first photo is of us trying to get our act together. Because again, she just like walks up as if she's like...
I'd be crying. That big ugly cry face if it was me.
But yeah, so it's one of those photos where... a photo tells 1,000 words.
Yeah.
Where it's her face where she's just kind of like, meh. And then my friend is...
These people have no idea.
My friend Candace has always been said, oh my God, you look like Bette Midler. And so they were talking about that. And then meanwhile, my friend Diana and I are over there getting ready to pose. But then the photo, it looks like I'm just staring at her breasts. So she's making this, you know, wham face. My friend is like, oh my God, everyone tells me I look like you. I'm staring at her boobs. So that's the first photo. And then the second one, we've gotten our act together and we're posed, and it's great. But yeah, I met Bette Midler, and
she's tiny as she looks.
She's tiny and she is amazing. And I saw her show several times. I was in Vegas, and she's incredible.
Yeah,
she's incredible.
So jealous.
Yeah,
so jealous.
So jealous. But let's go to, speaking of, so there's shows about social commentary, right? So when you do a show and you talk about a lot of political stuff, it becomes dated, right? So I remember I loved Grace Under Fire, that sitcom from the 90s. I loved it.
Who was in it?
Brett Butler.
Oh, yeah. Now I remember,
I loved real Southern accent.
Yeah, I know who she is. Like, yeah, I remember now.
I watched that show in syndication all through, like, my teenage years. But, you know, it just does not carry. She made too many Clinton references. And so when you do that, it kind of, like, dates it.
It dates it, but if it's a good piece, though, can't you watch it and go, oh, yeah.
She does it too much.
Sort of. Yeah. I know what you mean. There are some that you watch, and it's not fun anymore. And honestly,
it was great then.
That's happening to me with things like John Oliver and The Daily Show and whatnot. If I don't see it within like 48 hours,
me too.
you might as well just,
I don't watch it.
Yeah, there's no,
especially in this environment.
May not exist. Might as well not exist.
But seriously, it even. A year ago that wouldn't have necessarily been true. I would have, watched something that was a week old. Can't do it anymore.
Can't do that. Too much changes. But what I love is, we're in that binging culture of just, cutting on a show and going back and rewatching old series. I
love rewatching old series. That's amazing. But I have mixed emotions about binging. I love it. I love to be able to do it, but I really kind of miss the, next morning water cooler conversations. So like when Lost was on and it was, it was a weekly show, there was nothing more fun than to fly into work the next morning, get to my work bestie and go, oh, did you see that? What was, and that sort of anticipation and like waiting for the next week and there was something really fun about that.
That still exists.
I was just going to say, that still exists.
With Game of Thrones. Scandal. This Is Us. What's the werewolf one that everybody wants? Dave?
Oh, no, not werewolf.
Walking Dead.
Whatever. Zombies. It's the werewolves. What is that about?
Zombies, werewolves. It's all the same to me. It's all speculative to me.
Hey, you need to catch up on your speculative fiction.
So those shows still do exist. But I remember our first introduction to binging was, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was watching whole seasons of The Real World on MTV.
I'm too old.
I'm out.
I'm too old.
I'm out. Yeah, didn't do it.
Not my scene.
Actually, my first binging was with Lost because I watched the pilot episode and like, this is stupid. And then 3 years later, everybody was loving it. And so I'm like, all right, go get myself some DVDs. Yeah. And so I was,
Netflix DVDs, have them shipped.
I was, DVD binging on that, which got me caught up, and then that was fun.
Yeah.
And I've just done the same thing with Game of Thrones because, watched the first couple episodes, like, whatever.
Yeah.
And then and everybody was loving it. I'm like, okay, I need to dive in, and I did, and I watched like everything.
You were like out of commission for like a couple of months.
Yeah, but I can commit.
Yeah.
Okay, I can really date myself now. The first thing I remember ever binging, and I just put air quotes up, is Twilight Zone. When it would come on, I don't know, what is it, New Year's or something, it comes on, and there's one right after the other. I remember staying up.
So that was probably one of the first iterations of binge. Like it was marathons.
Yes. Marathons, yes.
So
same thing, really.
Holiday marathons.
Yeah. During holidays, there would be movie marathons and sometimes series. But when the time that I first saw it become more of a consistent thing and it kind of expected was with MTV, their shows, The Real World and Road Rules and all the challenges. That was anytime the season ended, then there would be a whole marathon. And honestly, it would kind of happen throughout the year. It wasn't just with holidays. And then Bravo started doing the same thing with all their different reality series.
Which I love,
God,
by the way.
I'm so not a fan of reality shows.
Oh, my.
I kind of hate them.
Some. I'm some.
I never got into
my guilty pleasure.
I never got into the Big Brothers. And
me neither.
But I was a big Bravo junkie for years. When I had cable, that's all my TV stayed on was Bravo. And I'd maybe go to VH1 or MTV for something random as hell, but mostly it was just stayed on Bravo. And I got into Flipping Out, the original couple of seasons of the Real Housewives. I didn't care for Real Housewives of Orange County that much, but I really got into Atlanta and I really got into New York.
Yeah. I love them.
So not my thing at all.
Love them.
Project Runway is the only reality show. That was a good one. I like to record it so that I can like fast forward through parts that I don't want and then stop and listen to whatever Tim Gunn has to say and then fast forward through other...
Make it work.
I love him. He's so sweet.
Where the hell is my chiffon? That was a good one. I loved where they were using a craft. So Top Chef, I loved. And those were always in marathons.
Yeah.
But I did like where they were actually creating something. And there was a couple of dance ones that was on Bravo before, like the Dancing with the Stars types of stuff and American Idol or whatever. But what's interesting is how, reality television came to be because there was a big strike with writers.
Right, exactly.
And so they're like, well, whatever, we'll keep making television. And someone came up with reality television, and that was the beginning of the demise of...
It's got to be cheaper.
It's cheaper.
Oh, of course it is.
But I mean, again, going back to MTV, the original reality TV series was The Real World.
Yes.
And the first decade of that series, each season that like they were telling interesting and important stories. But then it went to shit after after the second New York or maybe the Vegas season where everybody was just drunk as hell and hooking up. It just, fell to the wayside after that. And then again, the culture of reality series was popping up because of the strike with the writers, with the guild. Mm-hmm. And then like now we're all terrible human beings because of
well, what's
watching garbage television? It's just garbage television everywhere.
Think, if you look at, I'm not saying it's the reason, but what's that Snooki show that was on
Jersey Shore?
Jersey Shore. Ooh,
garbage.
Yeah.
Ick. Who was watching that?
I don't know, but I'm if you have to take a shower after you watch it, then just no.
Yeah, probably prepubescent boys.
But what else? Like, what else are you watching these days?
Again, is anybody watching the Sarah Silverman I Love America?
I've got some of it.
Did you like it?
Yes, and it's not something that I've been like actively trying to find,
right.
But I've caught a couple of things, and I like her.
I do too. Yeah.
I don't know. Every now and then, I feel like my mother, and I want to say, stop.
I do too, but I think artistically, she is doing it for the shock value.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah. And I do like her. You have to like her to watch it. Otherwise,
what are you doing?
She seems like kind of a genuinely nice person, which, and I don't know if that makes a difference, but she seems like somebody I would like.
Yes.
To hang out with.
Yeah. And let's see. I'm excited about The Crown coming out. Also, I've been watching what feels like a whole series of just like bodice rippers. I'm watching Outlander, and Poldark, and all of these sort of like gothic, just novelty kind of things.
Also, I know that those shows have kind of fallen into the category of these, erotica fantasies for a lot of women in the world, especially Outlander. I remember Poldark, he's eye candy, right?
Yeah. Outlander is, it's based on a really good series of books, a lot of sex in the books, but, the idea behind the book is really interesting, and it's this long, convoluted story. It's very fun.
Yeah.
But, and the filmed version, I think, is staying really true to that, and they're doing the time travel and all kinds of historical stuff's going on. But yeah, somebody described it as Scottish porn. But it's fun. It's a really fun series. And the Poldark thing, it's just straight up Harlequin romance. There's, the villain is very villainy, and the heroine is very heroiny, and the guy is just beautiful. And, it's just... But, those are fun.
I know a lot of people who are crazy about that series, but not me.
So, can we talk about David Simon? So,
maybe.
The Wire has always been touted as, the best television series.
I haven't seen it. Michael loved it.
Get out of here.
Can't get into it.
What?
Cannot get into it.
Michael loved it.
How hard have you tried?
Not very.
I haven't
It's
tried
one of
very
those
hard
things
either.
that, okay, you and like 7 other people say, you've got to watch The Wire.
Go back. I burned through Dexter because of you.
Yeah.
Please give The Wire another shot.
Okay. How many episodes do I have to watch before I'm going to be there?
I don't remember. But
damn it.
Like a few, like it wasn't bad. Like to me, Dexter, it was tough getting into. But once I
couldn't get into Dexter.
I gave it another shot because of because of this one
over here.
This one over here. I trust her judgment. She doesn't really steer me wrong that often.
That often.
Sometimes.
Other than when she's like throwing brown liquor at me.
Well,
My bad.
But give it another shot. I bring up David Simon because of his latest series on HBO, The Deuce.
oh, yes.
Did you like it?
I haven't finished it.
I couldn't get into it.
Okay, here's the deal.
Break it down for me.
I liked it in the beginning, was excited about it. Of course, I love Maggie Gyllenhaal. So I was, excited about her and that they were exploring this because, I'm a 70s gal and I do remember when that whole porn thing. I heard about it. I just heard about it. It was a rumor. So
There's
this whole porn thing going on. But anyway, but I got to tell you, Michael and I watched it. I don't know, like last Saturday night because we watch it together. So we're not allowed to skip ahead or anything. We watched it together, and we both looked at each other, and he said, "I might be out." It's slow.
It is the slowest thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
Okay, we get it. We know you've set it up. I think I know where you're going here. Let's get there.
Yeah, my patience is running real thin.
Yeah, but I might give it one more and hopefully because it's got a great premise. I love the premise. Yeah. I love everybody in it.
70s New York, just dirty, trashy, and he's a phenomenal storyteller.
Yes, and I really think as though they're doing a lot right. Except for it's too frickin' slow.
Okay, what about Mr. Robot? Anybody?
No.
Mr. Robot?
It's on my list. I haven't gotten to it.
I heard it's good.
I got into it. I was watching it for a while, and I'm like, can we move things along?
Okay.
I couldn't stick with it.
Is it because they think people are stupid, and so they feel like they have to beat the premise into their head before they can go on? Or is it just bad storytelling?
Or maybe it's what we were talking about earlier, where it's not filmed and cut for our mainstream audience. They're exploring the topics in their own pace and in the way they want to, and maybe we're just not digging it.
Yeah,
and that's fine. That's okay. Maybe somebody else is.
It's because it's for like with this capability, you are able to do niche market stuff. And it's not going to be for everybody.
That niche.
We're not that niche.
Yeah.
Well, I think Lena Dunham to me is
is
very much a niche person.
I love her.
I love her and hate her.
Fucking hate her.
I'm going to sit between you two and we'll have this argument.
Because I love her.
I hate watched girls.
See, me too. Because I wanted to slap every character.
And you're supposed to.
I know, but damn, it's like I was hurting myself every time. And I would laugh, but then I'm like, why am I punishing myself with these 20-year-old girls who are so damn stupid?
Well, I think one of the things is my son said to me in the first season, and I did love it. He said to me, Mom, they have nailed it. They've nailed Bushwick.
He sees those girls walking around the street.
I know those girls. I've seen them. They did. So I think some of it is a cultural thing. I can't see Southern girls really digging that because
I thought it was more age. I thought I was just looking at these 20-year-old girls going, oh my God, could you be less stupid? Is it possible for you to be less stupid? And again, I'm turning into my mother, and I looked at Lena Dunham, and I'm like, honey, what are you wearing?
But she's doing it on purpose.
I know, but
yeah,
damn, stop doing it.
Oh, see, I loved everything about it.
Did you see the movie Small Furniture?
No, not yet. Everybody tells me I need tiny furniture.
Yeah, okay, but it's totally her.
It's like the precursor. Yeah.
Girls.
Okay. Did you all see the episode, the Dick episode with the author?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Now you have to say that. First of all, before it's time here, people, and how excellent that was excellent.
I thought the show was well done. It's Lena Dunham personally that I can't fucking stand. She's the fucking worst.
Is she just too...
What is she then to you?
She is too...
bratty? I mean, what is it?
Too bratty, too self-involved. So it's her antics. So yeah, if she would, I don't know, shut the fuck up and just let her work speak for her, I think she would
That's
be...
the opposite of what she wants to do, though.
Right, but so her issue is then within the, within the public realm, right? So what was it, like a year ago, she goes on this whole tirade where she's at this award show, and Odell Beckham Jr. is just kind of scrolling around on his phone. They're at the table together, but he pays no attention to her, just like he's not paying attention to anyone at the table.
Right.
But she goes in this whole like Twitter rant about how she's the most disgusting she must be the most disgusting person in the world because Odell Beckham Jr. isn't paying attention to her white body. As a white woman, like she's supposed to be the most desirable thing in the world, and he's not paying any attention to her, so she must be the worst thing, and so she's going off on him when meanwhile he's just scrolling through fucking Snapchat or Instagram minding his own business, but she's making up this whole narrative.
She's making it about her.
Yes. And so
she strikes me as the sort of person that feels very I am very woke and I know everything that's going on, and she's running her mouth about it and then puts her foot right in it.
Square into it.
But you know what? I think some of that is youth.
She ain't that young, girl.
Well, how old is she?
She's like my age. She's like in her 30s.
Okay, but we can't go by you.
Because I'm 55.
Right.
Yes.
Can't go by you. You can't say, no, you can't. No, she's...
Okay,
I don't know.
Yeah, there's youth or whatever. Kendall Jenner isn't making those kind of stupid mistakes.
I don't think Kendall Jenner is a good example.
But I'm going purely on you saying youth. So recently, with everything...
You want to pick somebody else?
Yes. Choose someone else.
Moving forward in a post-Harvey Weinstein era.
Okay.
Recently,
Is
her...
it post yet?
Recently, her egregence has been... is that a word? I think I just made that up. Can I get some more wine? A grievance with her has been a accusation came up against a writer on her show Girls. This guy was accused of sexual assault or an advance or whatever. And so in the realm of everybody is kind of coming out and saying, hey, yes, me too, me too, me too, and then these powerful men are going down, she and all these other white women on this show come to the side and aid of this guy, saying like, no, this is the 1% of men who is actually innocent. This person is accusing them and she's standing up for him and da-da-da. I get it. Like, yeah, that's your friend. But it was just it was so tone deaf. And she's always doing stuff like that, where she tries to act like she's woke and this big feminist, but when there's this moment that's happening, she's always got to like step in and be like, oh, but this. And
she kind of whiplashes back to, I'm a suburban white girl.
I can't comment on that because I don't know that particular situation, but I certainly am going to read about it now. But the Times... I heard an interview with Terry Gross that I was cheering as I was driving, saying, thank God there's this feminist, a young feminist. Stop, don't make your eyes like that. A young feminist who is coming along, and I...
Well, and let's be fair. When you're in the public eye and you're speaking out, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to do stupid stuff. And
people are going to misinterpret.
And people are going to misinterpret you. And, it's way too hard to ask them to be perfect. So
yes,
the things that irritate you, perfectly legitimate. Everybody's going to screw up. But let's contrast that with Sarah Silverman and how she reacted to the whole Louis C.K. thing.
Right.
Because her response was, I love him. Can you love somebody who does awful stuff? Can this person who is my friend that I love, can I acknowledge that he has just been horrible? And that's
and she basically said, I'm brokenhearted.
Yeah, and that's what this whole thing is coming down to. And I can see those girls going, but we love him and he's wonderful and we want to defend him.
That's not him. He would never do that. Yeah. But he did.
Well, how do you know he did? I mean, I don't know the story, so I'm not going to...
Well,
get in.
I mean,
and that's the other thing that's making me crazy right now. How do you know what the exact correct story is? And yes, you want to believe the victim, but isn't there a possibility? It makes me crazy.
Yeah, it
and
is.
the fact that we don't have a sliding scale of
it's all or nothing.
there's a difference between a damn pedophile
Right.
and a 90-year-old man patting somebody's ass. Neither one of them is a good thing.
No.
Neither one of them
No.
is okay.
No.
But can we look at who is the victim, what is the harm, and have some context? And I don't even know how to make that, though. I don't know how to make that context make sense. And you can't. Oh man!
Especially
I'm
when
so black and
everybody's
white
using
about
it
stuff.
especially when everybody's using it as a weapon.
Yeah, and I'm a very linear kind of person. I want to solve for X and look it up in the back of the book and see if X is correct. I want, and so I'm having a real hard time with this whole thing.
Yes. I'm glad it's happening.
Oh gosh, yes.
I mean, I'm thrilled it's happening, if you must know.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. But we're navigating. We're navigating these waters, but there's not a lot of really sane people out there right now.
Well, and age always comes into it. Age always comes into it. And, what you experienced as a teenager was different than me 10, 15 years later experiencing as a teenager, is different than.
Right.
And the older we are, the harder it is to, try to be open to the younger interpretation of these things. I don't know. It's just really tricky. Like, for example, a couple of years ago, this is a stupid example, but a couple of years ago, I rewatched, what's the Molly Ringwald movie? Pretty in Pink.
Candle.
No, 16 Candles. It was 16 Candles. And looking at that, that's a very rapey show.
Yeah.
It's very creepy looking at it now. At the time, I'm what, 17, 18, watching this movie. I thought it was funny as hell.
Right.
But now I'm looking at it and thinking, that's a 17-year-old girl who's very drunk and her boyfriend's putting her in a car with somebody and saying, hey, take her home, do what you need to, but just get the car back to me. It's very creepy.
Yeah.
Why was this funny?
Yeah.
Why was this okay? And it makes me wonder about how I have viewed the world, I'm questioning myself in a lot of my viewpoints, and I guess that's a good thing, but it's not comfortable.
It's not comfortable, but as long as you are actually willing to sit in that discomfort, is how we will progress.
Shit, I'm tired of sitting in the discomfort, but I guess
I know. I'm uncomfortable as hell all the time.
This chair is uncomfortable.
Damn it.
But, I mean, that's how we're going to progress, is being able to be brave enough to sit in our discomfort of the things that we have done or the ways that we have looked at things and be like, wow, okay, that's how I looked at that then.
Mm-hmm. Or those are the words that came out of my mouth. What was I thinking?
Yeah. And then also, it was a different time period. So, you were like, I mean, look at the age of Mad Men. Ad Men were able to get away with all of this behavior and, all this stuff.
Okay, speaking of things that we watch and don't watch, tried to watch Mad Men, tried to binge on that a couple of years ago. Oh, but I wanted Tom to watch it with me, right?
Yeah.
And he watched like one episode and he said, I'm not watching this shit. I lived through that. This is not fun. And just walked away. I'm like, okay, well, I will not be watching that then.
Tom's like, been there, done that.
Okay.
Next.
Yeah.
But he has been enjoying The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which is the same time period, but we're looking at it from a different point of view.
Oh, I can't
Different
wait
lens.
to see that.
Yeah, we're looking at it through
from the female
perspective, and it's fun.
Okay. So
Bringing it back.
Bringing it back. I don't necessarily have a honey because I felt like I just went on this whole tirade on Lena Dunham.
So that was your honey?
That was my honey, but maybe I'll think of something. Do you have one?
My honey is just dumb people who make, and I mean dumb people, who make statements based on something they saw that was trending and just blurt it out and have no idea what they're talking about. It's just just people saying things without fleshing them out, without looking them up, without
or
knowing.
Regurgitating
Honey,
something.
honey, could you pause 2 seconds before you repost that Facebook article? Because you
Yes.
probably haven't read it.
You haven't read it. It's just, it's like, what?
You're posting it based on the title. You didn't actually read it. And you're like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with this. And you post it, and half the time it's not even a real source, you know? And it's like, this is
like,
not
baby.
helping the situation, you know? Come on, people, get on. I'm just lost patience with everything and everybody, which is why I sit home, watch TV.
That's why we're sitting here drinking wine.
That's right.
You know, with our head in the sand, we're just taking in television and movies.
Yes.
And
But my head's not in the sand, but it's sanity.
It's
You know,
sanity.
to watch, get in somebody else's world.
Yeah.
I'm having some moments of head in sand where I can't look at anything for a few hours or a few days, and then
It's too much. It's too much.
What about you, Jennifer?
well, I'm just gonna rag on Lena Dunham some more. Honey, what are you wearing? Stop it,
Lena, I
Stop
love
it.
you.
Stop
Poor Lena.
My God.
Poor Lena.
But yeah, I wish I could find that article that was just kind of going in. But this isn't necessarily a honey, but it's kind of interesting, you know, given that we were talking about earlier Southeast Asian representation of folks in movies, television, or just in pop culture in general. So the movie The Big Sick, did you see that?
Not yet.
No.
It's out on, I think it's streaming now. I just bookmarked it to watch it again. I saw it in theaters. I think it's like on Amazon or HBO or
Add it to my
Hulu or
list.
something like that.
What is it?
The Big Sick was the story of Kumail Nanjiani, who is a comedian. He's best known for these little bit parts. He has this very dry sense of humor. He's on an HBO series. God, what's that show that's Silicon Valley?
Yeah.
He's on there. Is he on... Anyways, he's always kind of like that. He's always like a secondary character, and he's just got this very dry wit and, you know, humor. He's always got that line. I really like, he resonates with me. I really like his style. And so his movie, The Big Sick, is kind of based on his real life with him and his wife. So he's, I think, Pakistani, and his wife is white. And the story is about how when they were dating, she ended up getting sick, and it was either maybe a form of cancer or some other illness, and so she was in the hospital. And so he's dealing with all of these issues of, you know, dealing with her parents, being a man of color, and then also they had just broken up and all this stuff and navigating that. And I really enjoyed the film. And sometimes I am not always watching everything with a critical eye. My friend Jackson, she has, I don't know, like, she's ruined like many a movie or television experience because she is a critical thinker. She is a sociologist, so she's always, you know, has her cap on when she's watching anything, and she's always looking at it through that critical lens. And so I'll watch something, I'm just kind of like, you know, a little bumpkin watching television, like, oh, that was funny. And she's like, well, it's problematic as fuck because of this, that, and the other. I'm like, oh, well,
Thanks for ruining that for me.
thanks. You're right, but fuck. And so I didn't really watch that movie. I mean, again, I don't watch most things with that critical of an eye. And so there's an article that kind of came out. And speaking of like the documentary about the problem with the poo, this article was about, it's titled, The Big Sick's Disgusting Treatment of Women of Color Illuminates the Violence of Colorblind Love. So loaded, very loaded title, right?
Really?
But the series kind of talks about how his family wants him to marry traditionally to their culture. But meanwhile, he's an American, he grew up American. So he wants to, find love, kind of like with Aziz on Master of None, where he wants to, date who he wants to date. Right. And oftentimes in these kinds of stories, it is, usually a white woman love interest. And the article kind of goes about talking how, you have this parade of Middle Eastern, Southeast Asian women that they line up for these blind dates for him, like his family sets up, and how, these are beautiful women.
But and reject,
because he doesn't want to go through that traditional style of being, matched up. But what sucks is that if you are a woman that looks like those women on that screen, you may walk away feeling like, God, I'll never be good enough, because, they'll always go for that, someone with a more fair skin and, that sort of thing. And so the article was just really interesting. And all of these topics, and I mean, obviously it rings more in my head because of, my experience with dating and, how my attractions and all that stuff. And it just really makes me try to rethink about why I am attracted to who I'm attracted to. And then it makes me like, God, I'm the problem. Yeah. God. And, but also I've never been in spaces where I've been around women who look like me. Yeah. Like I've always gone to these predominantly white schools. Mm-hmm. I've always lived in these predominantly white communities. And it's not that I don't find women that look like me attractive, is that I just don't run into as many people that look like me to date, because, mm-hmm. There's not a whole lot of, queer women around where I am anyways, and let alone they be queer women of color. And so going back to talking about how just being willing to sit in that uncomfortableness of your own shit, mm-hmm. it just made me like, God, not that, I live in a, culture where my family is always trying to like hook me up with an arranged situation, but it just goes to make you think, but it's something that I feel that more people should do more. I say all that to say, and to reiterate that more people need to take the time to reflect on their lives, the decisions that they've made in their lives, what that means, and how they proceed to make further decisions later on, and try to see why you make those decisions. Why you have these preferences or biases or, whatever, like within the...
But like you said just a second ago, it might not even be that you have a bias or a preference. It's just propinquity. I mean, mm-hmm. who's there? Yeah. If you mm-hmm. run into 100 different people, how many of them, look like you, what is your, what's your probability? It's math.
Yeah.
And so out of 100 people, you may be attracted to 10 of them. Yeah. If only 2 of them are people of color out of the 100, it's just math.
Yeah.
And there was another movie whose name I can't remember right now. What was it? But it was the same. It was the same basic idea. It was, I am an Indian man whose family wants to set him up. But who does he eventually end up with? And mm-hmm. that's a storyline. That's a trope.
Yeah.
It's out there. And obviously the girls that the family's going to be setting him up with are going to look like them.
Yeah.
And in order to, introduce some drama, he's mm-hmm. not going to fall in love with a beautiful Indian American girl.
Yeah.
He's going to fall in love with somebody who is outside. So that's in a way just kind of lazy storytelling. Mm-hmm. Because how do you make the drama? You make the drama by, creating these two camps.
Yeah.
And isn't that a tale as old as time?
Yeah,
it really is.
It's the same critique.
In fair Verona.
Yeah, really.
It's the same critique of Master of None, is that, he's going after all of these women who aren't of color. And what's sex about the second season is, like, in one of those first episodes, he does beat this British woman.
And I kept wanting her to come back.
Yeah, it was the first. Yeah, it was the first episode. Where he lost her number.
Yes.
I kept thinking she was going to pop back up.
Yes.
Maybe season 3.
Yeah, maybe, but probably not, because like they were just trying to. It's almost like oh, we're just trying to make a point that we will do this, but then it's not. But then so being a woman of color, like watching also that season, the Thanksgiving episode. Oh my God, I've never felt like. I've always felt like just super like different, Never have I seen an episode or motion picture or any depiction that felt like, oh my God, that is my life.
After you said that, I went back and watched it again because it was a fabulous episode in and of itself. But when you said that, I went back and I watched it. I thought, I can so see you wearing the clothes. That was your bedroom. That was your family. I mean, I can see it.
My bedroom wasn't like that. I never had photos up or anything like that. But like what she wore, the big oversized polo. It was my stepdad's polo. It smelled like his cologne. Like everything that she wore, the cross colors, and I was like, oh my God. It was so nice to feel like, wow, I'm seen. A friend of mine, Laura, on Facebook had posted about the episode. I was watching this season, but I hadn't got to that episode, and she was like, "Oh my God, shout out to all my queers of color! Like, wait until you get to this episode." And I was like, "Oh, okay, whatever." And I get to it, I'm like, jaw on the floor the entire episode. It was the most perfect.
I'm gonna watch
show.
It again,
from beginning to end, a perfect episode from beginning to end. It was just, and I think she was nominated or won best writer.
I don't know, should
Emmy.
be though, and good on him for spending some time on that character because it was kind of a throwaway character, through
the first season.
But
and we'll definitely throw away until that episode in that season. Like she wasn't really prevalent in this season like she was in his friend group because he was mostly in Italy that season. But just, I was like, yes. Wow, it is. I feel what it's like to be, I don't know, you're a mainstream person where you actually feel like you're seen in the world.
That's great.
So kudos to Lena
Good
Waithe,
storytelling.
Aziz Ansari, and that whole ensemble for just creating compelling television and not being afraid to, take the criticism and then doing better after that. So, you have anything else you all want to...
I just want to say one word.
Yeah.
Baskets. Anyone? Has anybody watched it?
Yes. I tried.
I watched one episode.
It was so...
You have to get past it. You have to wait till Louis Anderson gets on. Did you watch long?
Yeah.
Don't you think he's amazing? Louis Anderson's amazing in that?
I just couldn't. I couldn't. I couldn't go
it's out there.
I'll give it another shot. Like I said, I only watched that first episode with the
rodeo,
rodeo, and I was like, what the hell is this?
I know.
The Orville. Hello, science fiction fans. The Orville. Anybody?
No.
Crickets. No, of course not.
No.
It's fun.
It's fun. All right. Yeah, I do like Seth MacFarlane is funny. So, and yeah.
It's basically like Star Trek, but like if they could cuss on the bridge.
Difficult People got canceled.
Did it?
What? No.
Yeah, it's not coming back.
Okay, now I have to admit, it wears me out. I can watch an episode or two, but it's in the way it's like Girls. I just want to smack them. Like, shut up. Just shut up.
Okay, so we're talking Northeast Jews then.
Basically Yankees, yeah. I was just smacking them.
Okay, that's what I thought.
I love Northeast Jews.
Okay.
Like I feel like I was Jewish in a former life.
I think you were.
I think I'm still today. Like there's nothing more in this life that I love than Jewish comedy culture and like I had a girlfriend who was Jewish, and like she just could not deal with me because I was always watching like shows that reminded her of her uncles. Like I would be binging Curb Your Enthusiasm.
I was just going to bring up Curb Your
and she was
Enthusiasm.
like, God, could you not? Like, this reminds me of all my uncles.
Just gonna mention again, you need to watch The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Cannot wait. It's putting that on my list.
Well, my lovelies.
All right. This has been fun.
Yeah, this has been a rousing conversation. I mean, this is pretty much...
It's been a rambling conversation.
Yeah,
is
it
what
really
you mean.
I hope it makes sense.
Of course it doesn't. That's okay.
Well, no, this is, I mean, anytime we see each other, that's what we end up doing. It's like, oh my God, and we're just yelling at each other like, did you?
And we don't even say hello. Go, have you been watching?
Oh my God. And like, I could see how we wouldn't even see each other for like a year or 5 years, and we would just like walk in like, oh my God, so
Did you see the season of The Crown? It's just...
All right. If you listeners out there, if you have a show topic or questions, you want us to help you figure out your life, send us an email at coupleoflindas@gmail.com. We're all over social media, Facebook, Instagram, all that good stuff. And I'm old, so we don't have Snapchat. But we're all over the other places. So hit us up so you can keep abreast of the episodes. A big thank you to my guests this evening, Kathy and Jennifer.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Y'all are everything. And we'll catch you next time on A Couple of Lindas.